And welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. Our next guests are featured here every month on the third Thursday of every month at the 11 o'clock hour. Dr. Michele Sherwood is a trained doctor of osteopathy. Dr. Mark Sherwood is a trained naturopathic doctor. Mark and Michele use an integrated approach that focuses on prevention and lifelong wellness. The Sherwoods have a thriving medical practice, the Functional Medical Institute, are recognized experts in health and wellness. In their 18 years of practice, they have helped almost 8,000 patients worldwide with an annual reach of over 1.3 million. Together, they've authored 3 books: Fork Your Diet, Master the 4 Fundamentals of Good Health, Surviving the Garden of Eden, Surprising Biblical Insights to Enjoy Optimal Wellness, and The Quest for Wellness, a practical and personal wellness plan for optimal health in your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. You can find out more at the website fmidr.com. Here to talk about destructive behaviors that derail optimal health in light of COVID-19 and overall wellness and our understanding, preconceived notions, lies, and truths about wellness are Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood, known as M&M.
I knew that was coming, man. And by the way, we are M&M without the sugar. It could be plain or peanut, but it's M&M without the sugar either way.
The sugar. Listen, I'm on this. I have made this confession before that I like chocolate. And you've always said to me, well, okay, have it.
Yeah.
But I'm always searching for new, non-sugar, non-gluten, I'm looking for healthy sources. I keep trying them. Some of them are, the caloric count of them are ridiculous. There's more calories in 1 square of one of these supposedly healthy, sugar-free, keto-friendly chocolate. It tastes great, but when I looked at the caloric count, it was off the chart. And I don't know whether or not it's a glycemic caloric kicker or if it's a non-glycemic effector. But I'm one of those people that likes, if I have something salty, I want something sweet. Okay? It's palate. You develop a palate. But in trying to maintain optimal wellness, as you've helped educate me on aging well, I've employed the practices. I've done the things you've recommended, but I'm still searching for that perfect chocolate.
Well, with chocolate, you got to think about this. If the percent of that chocolate is about 80, 85 or higher, it will be more bitter, but it's actually more better. That's a good way to look at it. Bitter, better. With the calorie load in that, we got to think about this from the standpoint of, and I would say in your position, it's really the glycemic load in that example is going to be relatively low because most of the calories from that are going to come from the fat there in that substance. And as we know, calories are calculated with the idea of a potential energy. It's not reality. It's a potential there, and it's a measurement, whether accurate or not. It's a measurement, and it's going to be different with each of us because each of us break down things at a metabolically different pace. So the reason the calories are so high is because a gram of fat is translated to 9 calories, where a gram of carbohydrate or protein is translated to 4 calories respectively. So that's how that adds up. Probably wouldn't worry about that too much because in that more bitter, more better concept, you're going to get the nice magnesium in there, and the cravings will go away. It's overall very, very healthy, So I would say it's probably good.
Yeah, as long as that sugar content is not I usually say if sugar is one of the first 5 ingredients, put it back on the shelf because that's going to eventually get you in trouble. But if you're just having a small piece of something and you're able to take a bite of it and put it back away, and it's not an addiction, no worries.
I've shared this with you before. Somewhere my trigger for fullness is off. And it's something I've got to find a way to reset my brain to be able to say, you're full. I can have a propensity to eat it all.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. And not feel full. But I know that I'm full.
Correct.
So
there are a lot of things that relate to that. Genetically, some people have a missing component called MC4R. We call that the death by buffet gene. These are individuals that have no ability to satiate their appetite no matter what. These are people that you literally need to put a lock on the refrigerator because they're going to be in the refrigerator even after they've already eaten a full meal. They're going to find themselves in the refrigerator in the middle of the night trying to satiate or get full. So when you carry that genotype, your brain does not have the satiation signal. So in these individuals that we see in the clinic, of course, we have to point that out and say, it's not your fault. You can thank your parents for that or your ancestors for that. And we have to do behavior modification. If you buy a big bag of chips or if you buy a big box of chocolates that are quote unquote low glycemic or more healthy, you have to proportion those out into single serving sizes so that okay, I've had a serving, that's enough, instead of I've had a bag and I'm still hungry.
This ties on to a really interesting discussion too that our listeners will really find fascinating. Our genes have changed 2% in 10,000 years. So let's keep that context in mind and realize that the environment, which now is incongruent with our genes and our makeup of our genes and even the purposes of the genes, we have this environment that's radically changed in the last 200 years with industrialization, civilization moving closer together, and cropping and all that kind of stuff. So now we're not going through this famine time anymore, this lack of food, so it's around all the time. So what Dr. Michele is talking about, the MC4R gene, it's a receptor in the brain that's coded genetically. It stands for melanocortin 4 receptor. Melanocortin 4 receptor. And the brain, and it hears the signal from a hormone called leptin, Leptin, that is signaled to say, hey dude, I've got fuel, I've got some extra fat here that says I can work. So that in turn talks to the thyroid and says the thyroid can turn up the metabolism. But if that leptin gets so bombarded through excess adiposity, which is so common in America, and or the receptor doesn't hear the signal of leptin, this correlates very well with the growing obesity crisis across the world. And that, to me, is the greatest pandemic of them all. And a lot of people have this melanocortin 4 receptor mutation, if you will, and it's not meant to be a negative, but over the course of history, as we've developed, as I was saying, it has become a potential negative when we have this obesogenic environment with these non-nutrient dense, high-calorie substances that are everywhere. So I hope that kind of clarifies it, but it's not uncommon, and you just got to, I concur with my wife, you just got to pace it out and stretch it out. A person like that has to eat more frequently as opposed to trying to work through a fast, extended sometimes, and everybody's different. That's why fasting is harder for some people than others, even if you're perfectly healthy.
Is there a supplement that you can take that's going to boost or stimulate or replace that trigger mechanism, or stimulate that trigger mechanism that tells you you're full and takes the desire, the craving away?
We'll talk about that.
So, I mean, there are several things we use in the clinic. They've got different components in it, like bitter orange. There's something we call endotrim and thermo effects, and they have quote unquote appetite suppressants in them that are not drug based. So yes, there are supplements that do that. Also, if you do a serving of soluble, insoluble fiber before you sit down to eat, that absorbs water in the stomach and it creates a sensation of being full. So you can use fiber pre-meal to help satisfy your system, because at some point, the stomach expands to a place where you have a full sensation and you don't want to eat anymore.
So is it,
and it's interesting,
is it physical or mental?
The idea of satiety, there's a couple of things that we've done with success. There's a fiber that is a soluble fiber, meaning it grabs and binds with water, and it'll sort of create this blob in your belly. It's called glucomannan. And if you can take that before meals, it will sort of fill up that fist-sized stomach and you won't eat as much. Other things that would help would be like chromium, vanadium. Those will improve insulin sensitivity. There is interestingly enough, there's a peptide out there. It's not a supplement. It's a peptide that is amino acids, but typically these things are injected in a subcutaneous way. It's called melanotan-2, and it acts directly on that receptor, and it sort of makes it work better. So we use that here a lot. I just given it to somebody this morning for cravings, and it'll turn them off, man. So I've used that myself because it might surprise the listeners to understand that both Dr. Michele and I have what I would consider fat genes, and we have to be man. I will eat, man. You can put it in front of me, I'm going to eat. I used to eat her plate too when you go to the restaurant, and it's been painful, man. I've got to figure out how to carry a to-go box home, and I'm getting better at that right now because I don't need to finish that meal. That also is a factor that we got to think about too, because we pay for stuff, we think we got to finish it, and if it's there, we're going to eat it because we paid for it, but we're not full. When we're already full. We're just not. We're not hearing the signal very well, or we don't want to hear the signal. We don't want to waste anything, So all those are factors, of course.
Yeah.
One of the things we've talked about in this wellness hour is the aging population, and you don't see obese 94-year-olds walking the street. Obesity is a killer. So
it is.
You have to be very intentional and very deliberate to manage and really focus on it. I mean, it is a disciplinary kind of thing that doesn't go away. It doesn't fix itself, and you can't be obsessed about it, but you do have to be cognizant of it, because whether or not it's a scale or your clothes or whatever your primary indicators are as to if you're where you want to be. I've given you my numbers and where they started at 204 pounds and 30 BMI, down to a 10% body fat and a 22 BMI, and the weight can fluctuate 3 or 4 pounds. That doesn't concern me at all. I take a fiber supplement every morning, and not to get detailed, but regularity for me, if I wasn't completely eliminating what I had, then I was causing myself to gain, and things would build up. And so I don't think people realize that the system was meant to evacuate, and if you're not eating properly, you can't process and eliminate what you need to eliminate. So fiber, soluble fiber is your friend
Yeah.
in that case. There's a lot of things that we think, and I don't know whether or not we're conditioned to think that way. You know, prior to our hour with you, we spent an hour with Dr. Timothy Jennings as part of our featured program. He's a board-certified psychiatrist who works on, especially in the area of reversing early onset of dementia, working on the aging brain through diet, exercise, and reversing that process while it can be reversed. That's been his area of expertise. He's studied it for 25 years. He's an expert at it. But he's also a theologian. He's actually written a paraphrased Bible, New Testament, and working on the Old Testament. So he's a psychiatric theologian, which is like the perfect storm of great programming. We talk about you with him, and we talk about him with you, because the brain is such an important organ. And the neural pathways, and developing new and expanding new neural pathways, and expanding the brain and keeping it active as you age makes aging just a much better experience. There are many who are debilitated, but there's also some preconceived notions. Preconceived, you call them lies, limiting ideas entertained, that have made people believe things that just aren't true.
I think that's fascinating because, you know, when we were talking about today's show and all of that, some of these things that we entertain, I like the limiting ideas entertained as a lie. I think that's a great acronym. And, you know, one of them that we look at is this thing called intelligence. It's set and it can't be changed. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth, man. People listen to this show need to really get the idea that, you know, to really learn things, intelligence is actually both. It's learning new things and it's unlearning old things. It's not one or the other. It's both. And if we get locked into thinking we're there and it can't be changed, our sort of focus becomes so narrow and our world gets small. And to think we can't learn and think our intelligence can't improve is a big fat lie, because we study all the time, and if we don't study and we don't stay on it and we don't both practice unlearning and learning, we can't help people. We can't be leaders in the field. I mean, I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, that's right. And we find that the brain is very plastic. Mm-hmm. You know, like you said, that we learn a lot of things one way. I mean, we always drive home the same way. We always brush our teeth with the same hand. We always do things the same way. Yet there's limitless possibilities of how to do things different ways and how to expand the mental capacity of your mind. And the mind is light years ahead of the body. Yeah. So you think it, you shall become. So if you think you're aging and you think you're, you know, decrepit and you think you can't exercise, you aren't gonna be getting to the gym. You're not gonna get that body that you want. So you have to change that stinking thinking, if you will.
That's why the Bible says clearly to renew your mind. How often? Daily. And I think that means all day long. When you're conscious of that, don't live life unconscious. You know, a lot of times we do things without even thinking about them. Our behaviors are like, they become so predictable. And you know this, the longer we live on the planet, man, there's a lot of thinkers out there will talk about that study the brain. The saying is true: what is wired together fires together. And it's like when our neural pathways are connecting so much that one way we've done things, it's like, man, it's like driving in ruts. You can take your hand off the wheel. You don't have to think about it. It's automatic. This is just what I do. I get up every morning. I have a piece of toast. I drink my glass of milk, and I continue to hurt myself every day without even thinking about it. And you're like, stop both. And they're like, I can't. I don't even think about it. But we need to start thinking about it, because this whole concept of intelligence, the reason we are so adaptable as a human race, if you will, God's creation, His greatest, is because our intelligence is not fixed. It's not. It's able to be continually blossomed and grown. Of course, God being the author, but He continues to expand intelligence. We know more. That's cool. And we need to not limit the capability that our Heavenly Father's made in us. And I think that's one of the most limiting beliefs that people have, that, well, this is just how smart I am and is never going to learn anything else. That's not true, man. Not at all. And so that needs to go away, like yesterday, in full force.
It's interesting that Dr. Michele and I have a shared experience of homelessness. We've both been homeless. We both know what it's like to have what we saw, what we believed, have the rug pulled out from under us, and we found ourselves in a place where we didn't know how to navigate. We didn't know what we were going to do, but yet we were able to navigate our way out of it by creative thinking and by employing different networks and skill sets and ideas and thought processes to navigate out, as opposed to me still being, under a bridge with a shopping cart. We are wired in a certain way genetically. Part of that plays a factor in drive and intelligence and predispositions, but we also have the ability to drive past that and to learn new skills and new ways of thinking if we're willing to embrace them. And even though you and I are in specialty fields, within our own specialty field, we're always expanding. We're always, and so, as Dr. Jennings says, for some people, their neural pathway is one lane. Yep. For us, our neural pathway is 16 lanes, and we are constantly creating new neural pathways as we learn new things about what we already know about, but we're expanding our knowledge base. And you're not teaching what you taught 5 years ago.
No.
I'm not teaching even the same. I teach the Bible. The Bible hasn't changed in 5,000 years. The story hasn't changed. But how I teach it, what I'm able to perceive from it, what I'm able to recognize from it is different today than I taught it 5 years ago, because I'm open to expanding to entertain new ideas and to look at it differently. You've been doing this now for 18 years, and if you take a look at 18 years ago, what your recommendations in your practice were and what your recommendations are today, they're completely different.
Vastly different. Yeah.
They might be in opposition.
School, they told us that in 5 years, 50% of what you learn in medical school is going to be obsolete. And I thought that was just absolutely ridiculous. And then you start getting out into practice and you start realizing that the new is coming, the new is on the horizon. You got to stay up with the new. You got to expand your mind. You got to open up to new things. You can't stay in the old, because it really truly is obsolete.
I'm grateful for the information age we have. Through media like this, we're able to be in different places and we're able to share information, and we have it just at our fingertips. But at some point in time, we have to learn to, as people, to believe, as you said, that we can obtain more information because we have a connection with the author of intelligence. I mean, really do, the ultimate of intelligence, the apex of intelligence, and we can learn things. And man, it's not unusual for us. I mean, we over the last even 4 to 6 months, I mean, we're still learning things. We're like, wow, that's cool. So let's figure out how to help people with this. And the thing we have to overcome most of the time is it's not people's perhaps unwillingness to learn. It's their rigidity in their lowered ability or belief to unlearn. I think that's even more challenging. And it shocks your culture and shocks your world to realize, in your example, Rabbi Eric, that life is not one lane. There's multiple lanes, and there's multiple roads, and there's other information. And the quicker we learn that, the quicker our world can expand, our vision, our perception, our purview. And man, life, it becomes this unique experience that we have a better handle upon. If we don't handle life, I guarantee you it will handle us. It will roll right over you.
In looking at these limiting ideas, one of the things you pointed out was that we've come to believe that we only use a small part of our brain. Now, coming after Dr. Jennings, who's a psychiatrist, brain science is his expertise. He's been doing this for a long time in private practice. He's a specialist in magnetic stimulation for the treatment of depression. So a whole new science that has nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. It has to do with magnetic stimulation of the brain for the treatment of depression. And he's been very successful at it in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We talked about the fact that people's perception is that they have glommed onto this cliche, we only use 1/10 of our brain. Okay? Our brain is 100% utilized all the time. If I can wiggle my toes while I'm talking to you, which means I am multitasking, I am commanding my brain to wiggle my toes while my mouth is moving and I am expressing a thought and my toes are moving, then I'm using more than 10% of my brain. I'm using motor skills, I'm using complex reasoning, I'm using much more than most people are willing to accept. Now, truly, genetically, there are dispositions which limit some people's capacity. But the question I asked him was, can I learn a new skill? And he said, you can. You're perfectly capable of doing that if you are intentional and you want to develop that neural pathway to learning. But if you don't have a genetic gifting of music, you can learn to play a couple of songs on the piano. You can learn to sing them badly, but you're not. But you're not going to be Mozart.
Right.
Okay. So, in this idea of us only using a small part of our brain, as it impacts wellness, where's the correlation in broadening the scope of believing that our brains are more engaged than we acknowledge to impact embracing new thoughts, new patterns, and new pathways to wellness that we hadn't entertained?
Well, I think there's a lot of correlation quite well, because I concur with Dr. Jennings in the sense that we are using all of our brains, and we're indeed using it either well or not well. And that's really the interesting dilemma there. Do we use what we have well? And I would submit that most of the time the answer is absolutely not. And what I mean by that is, when we're talking about wellness, we're talking about a mindset. We really are, because wellness to us is being able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, relatively pain-free. There's a piece about that. And to get there, you have to have a mindset that says that's possible. Yeah. That's where it starts at. And you have to learn how to do things in a world, and this is very important, in a world that has set you up for failure. I mean, when you go to a grocery store, for example, you have to learn how to read labels. You have to learn to stay on the perimeters. You have to learn to block out the distraction of the end caps that have the sales, and block out the distraction of the labels that say heart healthy when it's actually heart dangerous. I mean, there's a whole world out there that's discoverable for people, and we have the capabilities to reuse all of our brain in a better way to exhibit better choices, better awareness, and even better consciousness of what we do. Because just like your example, to tag it one more time, if we think there's only one way to do it and we hammer that point home over and over and over again, it gets hammered so deep in us, it's like a nail that's driven 5 feet into us and through us, and it's got to be extracted. And sometimes it takes more pain to extract that. The old saying goes, when the pain of where you are finally overweighs the pain of change, you'll change. And people need to stop and wake up now. You don't have to get there. You don't have to get to the bottom, of the pig slop, as the prodigal son did, to learn you're in a bad spot, man. You got to stop, realize, I got to wake up.
Yeah. Well, in clinical practice here, when someone comes to me and they're thinking about changing their lifestyle or adapting this healthy lifestyle, I always have to ask, what is your state of readiness?
Yeah.
If their state of readiness is still on the fence and they don't want to go all in, and they really don't want to put in the elbow grease, they're not going to get the outcome that they really want, or that the outcome that they really are expecting. So it starts in the mind. You got to choose a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I choose my habits, I do my exercise, I do my fiber. I'm doing all of these things so that I can maintain my chassis the way that I want to. Mm-hmm. So health is a choice. Yes, there's some genetic predispositions to, bad things, yeah, but most things can be overcome, and health is a choice. You don't have to be diabetic. You don't have to be obese. You don't have to be frail. But it sure does take mindfulness, and it takes a lot of elbow grease. You got to do the work.
It's true. To your statement before about the pain, I'll give you a rabbiism you can use.
Okay.
Great.
And that is, a rose remains a bud until it's too painful to remain so, and that's when it blooms. The energy inside that bud, when you see it first set on the plant and then begins to take form, there is tremendous energy in there and the tightness of that bud until it becomes too painful and it blooms. And that's exactly what we have when we have this kind of thinking of patterns of life that becomes too painful to continue. We have to blossom into accepting new ways of doing it. We've been talking with Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood, as we do, on the third Thursday of every month, the 11 o'clock hour, for this wellness hour, taking a doctor of osteopathy, married to a naturopathic doctor, both who have been involved in bodybuilding, professional sports, wellness, and have taken together as a husband-wife practice in helping millions of people see the potential for obtaining wellness. What is wellness? It's a state of being. It's a mindset. It's a physical set. It's healthy. It's an alignment. It's when your body, mind, and spirit are working harmoniously and you are not doing things to derail yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually from what God has designed for you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue in this discussion about limiting ideas that we entertain which derail our path to wellness. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, host of Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Revealing Prophecy, seen every week on the Igniting Nation Broadcasting Network. Our daily on-demand programming is available on our Apple and Android apps and on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. We broadcast live Monday through Friday through our apps, on our website, ignitingnation.com, and on Facebook Live. You can listen daily on our audio platforms on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeart. Our lineup of best-selling authors bring you the most in-depth biblical insights into the most pressing issues of our time, including prophecy, Israel, spiritual warfare, and a wide variety of contemporary Christian issues impacting the body of Messiah around the globe. If you missed the live show, you can always catch up on the Igniting Nation YouTube channel. Follow us on social media and join us as we endeavor to heal the nations with the Word of God.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to study right by my side through the Biblical Truth Library. Imagine having access to over 1,000 hours of audio and video teachings available to you through our website on a subscription basis or via our Apple and Android apps on an a la carte basis. Whichever method you choose, we promise to deliver new insights into the living Word of God as seen through the eyes of a Jewish believer. If you hunger and thirst like millions around the world for a deeper walk with God and the revelation of new understanding of the Scriptures, visit ignitingnation.com and click on the Biblical Truth Library or on any device with our free app. Don't let another day go by without receiving your heart's desire for a new depth of understanding into all of God's Word. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zeb Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Drs. Michele and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitingnation.com or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitingnation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, You will never read your Bible the same way again. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and as we do on the third Thursday of every month in the 11 o'clock hour, we host Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood, both doctor of osteopathy and naturopathic doctor, talking about wellness and biblical wellness, not wellness defined by man, wellness defined by God, and that is an alignment of body, mind, emotions, and spirit, everything working in perfect harmony as the Bible has instructed us to do. We've been talking about limiting ideas that hold people back and keep them in a place where change is not possible, and they're very self-limiting. We've talked about intelligence, we've talked about the brain. Now we want to talk about mistakes, and mistakes being tantamount to failure. People have this New Year's resolution: I'm going to go work out, I'm going to do all this. Now you have Peloton and Nordic Track, where you can get these very expensive machines, and they've realized that working out in your home is lonely, so they've now introduced a person and a group and these videos, and it's supposed to stimulate you to want to engage and have a sense of community and competition. And I told you I got that little fold-up treadmill, put it in my house. I didn't like it. It's back in the garage, and I just go. I just do my 5 miles outside, figuring that's the best exercise I can do. I don't know if a treadmill's better or your natural carrying your body weight and moving all of your parts is better, but that's what I do. That's what I'm going to do, and I don't consider it a failure. It's just I've tried 17 times with treadmills. They don't work for me. It's a mindset thing. I'll go outside with the dog, but I'm not going to stay inside and perform a rocking chair activity. It seems like it gives me something to do, but I'm not getting anywhere. So how do we process mistakes, setbacks?
First, you got to think about the idea of a mistake. It's not a failure. You can't make a mistake unless you tried something. You can't, if you, in it, not that we like the word diet, but if you try to diet and failed, that's not a mistake, man. Your heart was in the right place. Your head was in the right place. You know you need to make change, and the only way to make change over the course of time is learn a few lessons. And, lessons are only good if you learn them. Mistakes are opportunities. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Heck, man, I made a mistake in marriage. Not with my wife, but you get what I'm talking about. And it was my fault, my mistake. And I had to own that. But it doesn't mean I'm a failure. It makes me who I am today. And we need to translate this to our wellness, because if we don't continue to develop and learn from our mistakes, because you're going to make them, I'm going to make them, whatever it's going to be, if you continue to learn from them, there's victory in that, man. There's development in that. There's graduation to another grade, if you will. The only way you learn from those things is to really you've earned the pain of those mistakes, but you've also earned the remedy behind them, which is really to know that I'd rather have tried something and failed a bunch of times than have never tried it at all.
Well, and I mean, just my own personal experience, when I would make a mistake on a test in medical school or undergraduate or whatever, I always learned much more from that mistake on what not to repeat the next time than I did from all the right things that I did on the test. So those mistakes actually teach us things. They teach us what we don't want to repeat. They teach us things that we need to learn to do differently. They teach us to expand our neural pathways, if you will. You don't want to keep going down the same tunnel, making the same mistake over and over and over again.
You know, what did Einstein say? He said, you know, to repeat the same things that give you a result and expect a different result is the definition of insanity, and that's true. That's not learning anything, man. And Einstein made a lot of mistakes. You can read his story, a lot of them. One of the most brilliant people, but he made more mistakes. Alexander Graham Bell. You can look at all these great people. The mistakes were just preparation for a success. That's all that is. And if we can get our mindset around that with our health and wellness, Rabbi Eric, man, that will revolutionize things. We need to have forward thinking on this. Look back with reflection, but don't dwell on it. Keep on going forward. Try to drive your car, you know, by looking in the rearview mirror all the time. You're going to crash going forward. But you look in the rearview mirror on those occasional times when you want to see what's coming up behind you. It's just an occasional reflection and not a perpetual distraction. So we just got to change our mindset in that area.
You know, it's often been said that good judgment is learned through bad experience.
Yep.
You don't learn anything if you do something right. You've learned nothing. It's.
I agree with that. You know, it's interesting because how many times have we dealt with people right here in our offices and our complex, and we learn from them. You know, we've learned from what not to do. I mean, we go back, man, remember I told that one patient to do this and that was a disaster. I'm like, oh no, you know, I don't want to do that anymore. Life's a learning experience. Life's a series of mistakes, you know, that we can go through. And man, we gotta press on and learn.
Do you think that we have overemphasized knowledge as being something that certainly being knowledgeable, being expert in your field, striving for excellence, expanding, and this was kind of the conversation with Dr. Jennings, is that I do what I do.
Yeah.
I'm in the Bible. I'm in the Bible all day long in every aspect of my life. It's a biblical worldview. Our conversation, our shows are biblical worldview. My reading is in biblical worldview. And I said to him, is that limiting my ability to develop and expand neural pathways to additional learning? And he said, no. He said, because you're constantly expanding to new ideas about the scriptures, new ideas about how to apply the scriptures. Prior to you and our time with Tom Horn, who wrote Time Bomb, talking about leaky gut, wellness wasn't really an integral part of our overall holistic view of our programming to say that this was an important, essential, foundational part of a biblical worldview and a biblical lifestyle. But since getting to know you, reading your books, and realizing that it is an integral part, we've expanded, and I now am able to ask you questions that expand my understanding of not just for myself, but for our audience. I use myself as an example, not because I'm selfish and egotistical. It's just not, I'm not going to point out my fat friend. I'm not going to point out my obese neighbor. I'm not going to point out the person that eats a pie every day. I'm going to point to my, it's like comedians. You talk about yourself, then you're not offending anybody. Nobody thinks you're talking about them. So how much emphasis do we put on knowledge, and we become so, there's a Yiddish expression, too smart, too late.
Yeah, I think today it's a dual-edged sword. The lie that we're talking about is knowledge is power. That's not true, because we have knowledge, and you know, I use the biblical example of the Pharisees, and they had a lot of knowledge, but we also know that knowledge has two pathways. The correct use of knowledge is wisdom. the incorrect use of knowledge is foolishness. And we have so much knowledge at our fingertips today, in our ears and our eyes. It's just so amazing. And we can learn things with great books, with great podcasts, with great shows, like yours. And yet knowledge cannot become powerful in a person's life until we know how to use it. And like you said earlier, the more time you spend in the Bible and with the Lord, your understanding of that is deepening, and you're able to communicate it better. That's powerful. That's powerful. And that does not limit you. It really unlimits you, right? And so that's kind of how we have to think about our wellness walk. We have to keep learning and keep changing, but not get locked into just reading a bunch of books. It's time to apply it, and the application is where the wisdom gets in.
Yeah, it's like a diamond in the rough. A diamond doesn't become a fine diamond unless there's a lot of polish that goes into it. So it really takes putting knowledge to work to get a good end product. You can know a lot of things, but it's not necessarily doing you a whole lot of good if you're not putting it to good work.
Yeah, we only have about 2 minutes left. I want to get to the last one, that genius is born. And that is certainly something that I think people look at other people and say, oh, he's a genius, I could never obtain that, I can't do that, I'm not capable. We buy into comparative, and that's exactly what that is.
Yep.
What do I define genius? It's always somebody else. It's never relative to me. So how do we overcome that?
Well, genius certainly is not born. Genius is potential for all of us. Every single person listening has the potential to be as genius as you want to be. Genius, by our definition, is being able to apply everything you learn, everything that's at your fingertips, in a beneficial way for yourself and other people. And if you can just wrap our arms around that idea, man, that's genius. It's genius to be able to live healthy in an unhealthy world. That's genius. It's genius to be able to communicate biblical truths in an unbiblical world. That's genius. It's genius to be able to be not stressed and not distracted in a stressful and distracted world. So that's not born, man. That is earned and learned and unlearned and all the things we talked about, I think that just kind of sums that whole process up.
It is. It is. Well, the motto of the Functional Medical Institute is, too much of a good thing is wonderful. Too much of a wonderful thing is detrimental.
Agreed. Yes, sir, indeed.
I like that too much of a good thing, but going overboard with that too much of a wonderful thing kind of takes you over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors Mark and Michele Sherwood. You can find out more at fmidr.com. They're readily available to answer your questions, make recommendations. There are great resources, a daily podcast. You have questions about your own situation, they are available for consultation, and also have products and services available through their website. You can also get their books, 3 of them, 3 books, Fork Your Diet, Survive in the Garden of Eden, and the Quest for Wellness. Click on ignitingnation.com. Look at today's calendar. You'll find the featured guest, Mark and Michele Sherwood. Click on Love the Interview, get the book. Press that button. Those books will be on their way to you. Mark and Michele, always great to spend this hour with you. We never have enough time. It's just too much fun to play with the M&Ms, plain and peanut. And you are a very welcome and appreciated addition to our lineup. So God bless you and thank you.
God bless you too. We appreciate you.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.